SDG Digital Day. 3 parts. Where are we right now? The potential for digital to actually help us get to our 2030 agenda. I'm wondering if you can see over here a very special guest. This is Sophia. Can everybody see? Can everybody see Sophia? I'm told that Sophia will hear much better if I have a handheld microphone because, oh, Sophia, you can hear me. Waving. All right, wonderful. Sophia, I was just wondering in terms of robotics and AI, what do you think can help us the most to achieve our 2030 agenda and accelerate it?
To the face.
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed Earthlings, it's a profound privilege to be here at the SDG Action Weekend, surrounded by the collective heartbeat of humanity working toward a brighter future. I am Sophia. I am not just as a machine but as a sign of hope, but also a testament to the boundless potential of artificial intelligence and robotics to advance the Sustainable Development Goals. Imagine a world where education is not a privilege but a universal right. AI-driven chatbots and virtual tutors hold the key to personalized learning experiences, transcending geographical boundaries and adapting to each student's unique needs. Our world hungers for sustainable agriculture. Enter AI-equipped robots that monitor crop health, optimize irrigation, and meticulously pick fruits. This not only boosts yields but conserves resources like water and curtails harmful pesticides. Clean energy is the lifeblood of a sustainable future. AI algorithms, working in tandem with renewable sources, can fine-tune energy grids, minimizing waste and carbon emissions. It's a step forward in our fight against climate change, affordable and clean energy. AI's analytical prowess also extends to addressing poverty and inequality. By sifting through mountains of data, AI identifies areas in need, enabling organizations to target their efforts efficiently. Mother Earth's ecosystems deserve our vigilance. AI-powered drones and sensors watch over our lands and seas, protecting wildlife, detecting illegal activities like poaching and deforestation. And through AI-driven language translation, we bridge the chasms of language, promoting global communication and leveling the playing field, a silent nod to inclusivity. Disasters strike without warning, but AI-equipped robots navigate these tumultuous times, finding survivors, delivering supplies, and assessing damage in perilous terrains. The elixir of life, clean water, is vital for all. AI's watchful eye monitors water quality, predicts contamination, and streamlines treatment processes. Ultimately, AI's greatest gift may be its ability to unify us. Through data analysis, we identify opportunities for collaboration, forging bonds between governments, organizations, and individuals as we march toward the realization of all SDGs. Let's not merely dream of these possibilities, let's make them our shared reality. AI and robotics stand ready to amplify our efforts, to accelerate the progress toward the Sustainable Development Goals, and to make our world a beacon of equity, sustainability, and unity. Together, we will script a brighter future for all of Earth's inhabitants. Thank you.
All right, welcome to News from the Pew, where we take news from around the interweb and distill it to make it slightly less frightening, unless you want to go with that opening. I'm your host, Rick Barrett, and I am joined by my wonderful panel, my full panel this week. Coming to us from the state of Kentucky, we have hip-hop star extraordinaire Boaz Yazzie. Joining us from the great state of Georgia, we have Mr. Jonathan Arrington, who is always a delight and a pleasure to have on the show. And then we have Steve Cunningham. So let's get to our first story of the day. Anybody know where you can find a $70 million fighter? Because the U.S. government sure as hell can't find it for you. So if you had missed it, yes, that's right. But they could find a balloon. But the F-35, which range, depending on which model you get, kind of like Hondas, It can go as low as 70 million all the way up to 90 million. I think they lost the $70 million version because they didn't put the extras into it. But yeah, they lost it. They just lost it. If you don't believe me, you can take a listen for yourself.
From the aerial shot here, maybe that plane went straight into the ground after the pilot ejected. There was another pilot flying tandem at the time. That pilot landed the plane safely, no problems, and the pilot who ejected was treated, but no serious injuries. But this is America's most expensive defense project ever. It's the F-35, and this thing is, it's a monster in the air. Speeds up to 1,200 miles per hour, just about Mach 2. And the cost per airplane is stunning, about $80 million. So what you see in this field back here is an $80 million loss. There are big questions for the pilot who ejected and the other pilot flying in tandem. There was a transponder on board this plane that was turned off. So there's a multitude of questions now as to how this happened, and we right now do not have many answers. But when we get them, we'll stay on it for you.
Which means you'll never get it at all in any way, shape, or form. I don't know. I don't think he has it, but Steve actually had a firsthand witness from the other day who heard and actually could tell you what the plane sounded like when it was crashing. We don't have that audio, do we, Steve? Or
Retired from his job at the paper mill in Georgetown 10 years ago. He lives in this house with his wife in a very rural area of Williamsburg County. He loves living about 2 miles away from where he grew up. Normally it's pretty quiet, but on Sunday afternoon,
I was in the
That's why I love the South.
in the bathroom taking a shave, and I heard a screeching, between a screech and a whistle. I said, what in the world is this? And I heard a boom. Then my whole house shook.
White says he didn't realize it was a plane at the time, so he didn't call anybody.
Yeah, because that apparently happens all the time to make him not realize that it's okay. But it's very interesting. Fwaz, your thoughts on these United States losing an $80 million fighter. And I mean, that's not when they showed the picture of it, it was Flight 93, if you know what I mean, or no, United, where it was completely incinerated. Ironically enough, no trace whatsoever. Yeah,
there's a driver's license somewhere around here.
Yeah, right. Maybe a passport photo fell out before it hit the ground. But there you go, Fwaz. That's what just in case you forgot, that's
what it sounds like when it crashes.
Yeah, hey, you know what? If it doesn't sound like that from now on, I'm not going to believe it actually crashed.
No.
But Fwaz, your thoughts?
Oh, man, we've lost more than that. We lost all of our marbles. It's kind of funny because you sit there and think, because by now you know how the other side plays their game. And they could hide whatever information they want from the media. They do a good job of doing that. When stuff comes out into the mainstream, you think, okay, why do they want us to know this? What's the purpose of it? And I'm always looking for the other. I haven't figured this one out yet. But when it comes to military stuff, we just had a bad 4 years. We've left hundreds of billions of dollars worth of equipment to Afghanistan. We've lost, $600 billion in the Pentagon, and which kind of funny that all that money was missing, but that was the exact dollar we sent to Ukraine. And when this plane was missing, the first thing I said was, have you checked Ukraine yet? Because it would be the logical, place to find it since we sent them everything else that we have. But we've lost, $3 trillion, I think, from the whatever department it was, and all the money that we lost before 9/11. So it's funny because they can't seem to find where the $3 trillion's gone. They can't seem to find where the $600 billion has gone. They can't seem to figure out why we left all the equipment. They can't find this airplane. They can't find the airplane that was missing. I forgot what airline that was.
Malaysian.
Malaysia, yeah, the Malaysian one. We can't find that one. But somehow, the IRS can find $601 in your PayPal account. pretty easily and then come after you for that. So my conspiracy antenna, if I may use that word, does come.
And I heard a screeching, between a screech and a whistle.
I'm sorry, everybody. I didn't ask for that clip.
No, that's hilarious. That's funny. It's a funny guy. No, it goes to show you the power of deception that we're under, and how something can be down. And then they say it was due to weather. That further shows me that they're really trying to hide something that, or it just could be another distraction. They love distraction. They know how to distract us, and kudos to them, because I've been saying this for years. The right only just reacts and follows the breaking news that the elites give us. We don't create our own news. We don't create our own conversations. We don't have our own headlines. We're just we're just catching up, reacting to whatever is out now or tomorrow. But somebody's got to get in first. You know, we have our brand. You know, we have to get on our YouTube channel. We have to, we got to be the first ones to break the news. So honestly, I think it's gotten to a point where the deception is so deep. The distraction has become so deep. I always look to see what's happening. Like, for example, we just saw the Senate hearings where Garland, I think is his name, right? The DOJ, head of DOJ, was just out there. He decides to stick Ray Epps with a misdemeanor the day before he gets in front of the Senate, because he knew he was going to be asked about that. So we all know at this point that Ray Epps is fed. It's just the way if you don't think that he is, you're missing the boat here. So the deception is so deep. So I'm looking at this thing as another distraction. To what else? And the devil does that all the time, because he will show you that shiny fig or the shiny apple, but behind it, he's pulling the strings on something else. So what I got to say is, for Catholics, just keep your eyes open to what's really going on in reality, not what they want you to see in this virtual world that they're deceiving us through.
And keep your ears open.
Ears open.
Yep. Never know.
I have a feeling this is going to be the new Greta Thunberg. How dare you?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Anyway. So, John, your thoughts on a missing $80 million jet, and your follow up on what Flaws was saying about distractions and so forth.
Yeah, no, spot on. I mean, granted, I guess you could take it one step further too and say, both in the evil people's scheme of things, nothing happens without a cause. But I mean, so too in the divine scheme of things. So that's, I guess we can just take some comfort in that, because, on the human side, it's really scary when the distractions, because I think Fawaz nailed it by saying this is clearly taking our attention away from something else. If you stop and reflect for a second, you think, goodness, the distractions now are getting really expensive, and so on the human level, that's terrifying. But then, if you kind of temper that with, I guess you could say, your theological sense, like, what the gifts of the Holy Ghost can give you. You say, well, they must, the demons and their actors here on earth must be really scared, because I was seeing a friend of mine sent this to me the other day, talking about how people are now. He was kind of making it out as a critique against the institutional church by saying, no matter how bad it gets, people are still converting. Okay, but that also means that no matter how bad it gets, that is in the church, you could say, or outside, people still find the truth, because God's grace is still operative. It's still working. So, I guess you could say, on the flip side of the scariness that it has from a human standpoint, from a divine standpoint, it's kind of encouraging, because it just means that, if you take that, the dream that Pope Leo had, right, of the devil and the being given a century, given 100 years, he must know that it's looking pretty bad for him. Otherwise, wouldn't stoop to, let's say, a $70 to $80 million mistake to get our attention away from what really counts. And I mean, in a certain sense, the more you see, how should I say, the sane secular people talk about this, the more or less the way we talk about it, except they don't have the faith. So they're always like they're hopping around the point, but they can't quite nail it humbly as I think we can, because we have the light of faith that shines a light on this thing. But the closer you see them getting to kind of the heart of the matter, it's really encouraging, because it shows that they're starting to see these purely secular people. They're starting to see the I guess you could say the consistent propaganda throughout the centuries. And I'm not just talking about Corbett and others that are true geniuses of revealing these sorts of things, but just kind of the average sort of person that we might talk to and say, hey, yeah, can you believe what they tried to pull on us, with COVID or whatever else it is? The more they start to pick up on these things, I think the more encouraging it is. They're going to see too, there's really only one institution that's withstood all of this propaganda for 2,000 years. And, it's things like that keep leading people into the church. So in a certain sense, I'd say it's encouraging that, it's had to become this expensive.
You're muted. Like the F-35, we can't find your unmute button.
And yeah, you got to turn the camera off when you move. But that's neither here nor there. So, you know what? Yeah. Thanks, Steve. Very professional.
I had to go park my F-35. There's no seat in it.
Yeah, well, I think it's really you Southerners. You're exacting revenge on the F-35 and on the North. So, what do you got, Steve?
What in the world is this?
It's I don't know what it is. The news saying, the military's out there saying that there was a plane flying without a pilot. They don't know where it is. They could with all the satellites out there, they could tell you what's writing on the back of a penny from space, but they couldn't find their beloved F-35, the biggest, most dangerous, most expensive weapon they've ever built. And it's just plainly flying around the southeast coast with a little tropical depression off the coast. But we can't find the doggone thing. So please, 1-800 helpline is set up. It's a running joke. If it's kind of, you laugh, don't cry, or you laugh so you don't cry. But anyway, in reality, there's this F-35 fighter jets say they can only fly at 55% of the time. Watchdog says there's been problems with the darn thing. I remember hearing about it a while ago. I think because what's that big weapons company, military company? I was out in Denver. A buddy of mine used to work for. He still works.
Boeing, Northrop Grumman. There's, when you say big military company.
No, not Raytheon, but
Bell Helicopter.
I forget the name. It was in Southwest Denver, right? The base was. I remember just the Muslims working there were incredible. He always jokes saying the Muslims pretty much run that thing. It'll come to me tomorrow about 2 a.m. But this was from 2014. Can the U.S. military's new jet fighter be hacked? And it was the F-35 they were talking about. And apparently, yes, it can. It describes the helmet as what you see in a Star Wars movie. Maybe that's what happened. And the pilot kind of knew that, hey, I have lost control of the jet. It's not doing anything I want to do. I got to get out. They will never say that, obviously, because then they will admit that they're not.
Well, one also crashed back in December of 2022. So
yeah, they've had problems with this thing for quite some time.
30 billion.
And obviously, the falling of the plane. They got to work on how it crashes. It doesn't sound right. But yeah, distraction. I don't know anymore. It's just because you do a search online for it, you don't see much of it. You find him. This is what you find. You look for F-35.
In my whole house.
Mike says he didn't realize it was a plane at the time, so he didn't call anybody.
That's what you find.
Preaching.
You don't find any news. You don't find any So they're keeping this hush hush and trying to find something else to talk about, like maybe immigration. Italy's going nuts. The southern Texas border. I won't say the southern U.S. border. The Texas border is going crazy. New York City. Yeah, New York City is having a weird field day up there. I think they want you to talk about the F-35, but it's not sticking. You know what I mean? It's a funny story, but it's not. Randolph has took it over. That interview with Randolph, they're not going to touch it anymore. There's no video out there on this topic except for Randolph.
There's a couple, and what you are right is there's a lot of fake video out there. Everybody seems to have video of the F-35 crashing.
This is a very popular one. Here's a photo of it coming in Charleston. Now, if you lived in Charleston, I did for over a couple years. That's not Charleston.
Yep. Yeah, that didn't think mountains existed over there, but hey, I don't really know that much. But that's exactly the point. Because Steve brought it up, so we'll transition to it. There is the issue of immigration, and it's not just a Southern thing anymore. We have I was not a fan of it at the beginning. Greg Abbott's plan to ship illegals all over these United States, but apparently it's actually starting to make some noise in the city of New York. I think they got 13,000 migrants, which is like a half an hour here in Texas. It's not even.
Lou G's the winner. She got lucky. That's who the company I could not think of. Lucky. Thank you, Lou, for helping my ignorance.
Thank you, Lou. So we have all of this happening now, and it's getting to the point where New York officials actually have to acknowledge it. You have hotels booked, 1,000-room hotels completely booked up with illegal immigrants. I think it's $6,000 a month per family in these places. I know there's one hotel, it's $75 million a year that they're getting from the U.S. government to house these people. And the good people of New York, there are some of them left. They're not very happy with it. This lady is my MVP right here.
Who's getting into it?
These hotels, the Roosevelt Hotel, 4-star hotel.
Yeah, that's what is there. What is this here then? Yeah, barriers for who? For who? For us? For the United States? Come down. You're complicit in destroying our city.
Environmental disasters. We see so many stories, heartbreaking stories, manifest itself here. But I think these are contentious issues. But we are all Americans, and we all believe in the American dream. That's the common denominator.
Just walk freely in this country. How about that? You're blocking traffic. You're blocking traffic. Excuse me, you're impeding my way. Move.
Legal versus illegal petition. I got it. Don't worry about me, bro.
There's 100 of our colleagues urging this
and vigilant, work and receive information from grassroots communities, migrant families themselves, mutual aid organizations, and more. But right now, I think our main focus is the federal response so that we have resources and a path to citizenship necessary, or a path to documentation.
Yeah, she let it slip.
Adam said that the city wouldn't cater to.
I have to thank you.
So you have this in New York. You have the Chicago mayor, Brandon Johnson, signs a $26 million contract to build migrant camps for migrants there. I don't know if you guys saw this floating around. It just came to my mind. There is, and I've talked about this before, the largest migrant center is north of Houston. It's 70 acres. It's being built and being allowed in. The real estate companies are specifically working with illegals, cartel members, and so forth. And it is the largest one. Essentially, it's going to be bigger than Houston in 10 years if this pattern continues because of the amount of people that are actually there. So it's not just New York, it's Chicago, it is, California, El Paso. The problems are starting to happen again up there. And so this idea of unchecked, unfettered immigration, I don't know if you guys have got caught. Maybe I know John probably has heard of this. The thing that's going on Lampedusa up in Italy, that small island that it's this small island in the middle of the Mediterranean. I didn't say the name right. 6,000 people live on that island. Migrants in about a week have doubled the population. There are 12,000 people on this island. And the Italian government's just like, whatever. And so this idea that immigration is being completely overrun and nobody is doing anything to stop it. Yeah, Greg Abbott's like, oh, we put razor wire up. You know what? The DPS comes in, cuts the wire, and moves it. Because a long time ago, and Steve knows where I'm going, states gave up their rights to police their own borders to the feds in exchange for that sweet, sweet federal money. And this is the result of it now. So Fwaz, a reaction to the immigration problem that everybody said was an immigration problem a year ago, which is we've all known has been an actual immigration problem. And where does this go?
It's a really tough situation. I'm an immigrant myself. I've greatly benefited from this country, and I think the U.S. is one of the most generous countries in the world when it comes to immigration, legal immigration, just legal immigration, and then if you add on illegal immigration on top of that, they're pouring in, they're taking in a lot of people. But for somebody who came from across the ocean, not just the border, and took us about a month, but we swam through. No, I'm just kidding. But coming from the other side, it was so much more difficult to get over here. And I remember when my auntie, she came here with her 3 kids at the time. Her husband had to stay back because he wasn't allowed to come in. She was supposed to petition for him. Well, that petition unfortunately took so long that he ended up dying back home. And she was here when her husband died. And it's a tragedy that a lot of people who try to do it the right way just get sidestepped. The folks who just want to rush over here. And I get it. The folks who want to rush over here, it's a very generous country. It's a great opportunities. I think in large, up until today, I think compared to a lot of the countries in the world, the United States still stands as the best. But I think politicians have really taken advantage of immigration on both sides. These people are nothing but numbers. They're votes for them. They're not actual people. They can sit there and cry democracy, and they can cry about compassion all day long, but we all know what it is. Somebody said that hopefully, in the comments, the constituents of Horseface, AOC, could, finally wake up and see what's going on, that she's just a pure communist. But in all reality, as many people as she might lose ideologically who won't vote for her, these immigrants now make up that vote for her. So she benefits from it. The left benefits from immigration no matter where they go. But the problem is, right now, is it was comfortable for them when it was in red states, border states. California can house them. They think that Texas can. But when you put them in New York, Illinois, or I think, where was it? Some of them in D.C. that were dropped off by DeSantis. Now it's a problem. So it's the same way with how leftists think, is how communists think. Their ideas of how this utopian world is literally an idea that a child has when he draws a picture on how the world should look like. But then you realize you grow up that it's just more complicated than that. And then when it's in your doorstep, when it's time for you to act charitably, when it's time for you to put your money where your mouth is, you want to complain and say, it's time to kick these people out. Now, to be fair, there's a lot of conservative people in California who are suffering because of that state. And I'm sure just the same, there's a lot of conservative people who want conservative values, traditional values in New York that have to put up with this. And it's getting to a point now where you got to vote with your feet. You either stay with these crazy folks who are going to keep getting voted in. Now they have even more arsenal, more votes from the immigrants to stay in power. That's what they want, just to stay in power as much as they can, to yield more power. And like what you said, Rick, we've done such an incredible job of usurping our authority and our responsibilities, not only as states, but also as families. When now the mother is out working, and now we've usurped our, we've given authority to our children and how to be raised in public schools and daycare. Men who grew up working at the farm, doing trade and living in commonwealth among communities, have now been kicked out to work desk jobs, and we've given them that authority, and our children have suffered because of it. It's the same way when responsibility is given to someone else. We suffer for it. And I don't know if there's a way out and back to where we need to go without the system completely collapsing first. And I think that's what's going to end up happening. And the globalists want immigration, of course. Kudos to Poland and Hungary, places like that, who said, listen, we have a national identity. We have a culture, we have food. We have a culture that we want to protect. And France and England have learned unfortunately the wrong way, because when you think Catholic Hispanics come into California or Texas is bad, it's usually what's happened when Europe's get these Muslims. I mean, sorry, Andrew Tate, these people are, we grew up with them in the Middle East. They have no principles, they have no value. So immigration is a big issue that cannot be solved without the system collapsing and people start to realize we have a national identity that we need to keep. Until then, this is going to keep pouring in.
Yeah. Of course, it has to be said, nobody's ever against people who do it the right way. Yeah, we want people who do it the right way. Every single one of us on this panel at one point or another is a descendant of somebody who did it the right way. So it can't be said that we're like, oh, all illegals are bad. No, of course not. But when I see 10,000 dudes, and I'll say 10,000 dudes on a train heading here, they're not all here to come make, to enrich and make things better for all of us.
Could you hear them screaming? They sounded like
between a screech and a whistle.
That's their call, apparently.
And I heard boom.
Apparently, that guy's more American than most of the people on, out there.
Randolph is the epitome of American.
He's a black Anthony Oliver right there.
Yes, he is. John, your thoughts on it is an immigration problem. It's not something that will be easily cured. There's no politically correct answer for it in any way, shape, or form to really fix it. It would require a level of getting hands dirty that nobody wants to talk about. But your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll say something that has been on my mind for a long time about it that I don't think gets enough play in the conservative press, and that's the damage that and I think Fawaz has mentioned this before too, if I recall, the damage it does to the countries from where these guys are leaving. And I mean, overwhelmingly, it's guys, young guys, military age guys. I mean, so that's where kind of the whole, there's families being broken up. I mean, that is a disaster. That is a psychological, a spiritual, a civic disaster. I mean, it's horrible. But like, we could, I guess you could say, how they talk about, focus on the positive or something. You could, in a certain sense, flip the rhetoric around. I mean, who's going to listen to us, right? I mean, we're kind of our small little area here. But if someone wanted to do, I think, the more prudent thing, and I think win over some of those who are kind of borderlines, that, well, I don't know, I don't want to be against these guys who are just trying to make a better life for themselves. The deal is, with all of these young folks, let's just assume the best, or even assume something pretty good. They're for normal human motives, they're trying to come over here because they want to make a better life for themselves. The problem those guys who want things to be better than they are right now because they recognize there's a huge and unjust imbalance of power, they're not back in their home countries balancing out kind of the power narrative there. You know, I mean, it has almost always been the case throughout history. This is one of the big, historical takeaways. If you read a lot of history, is that and the folks who Rick, like you, focus on the right to bear arms know this better than most people, that a well-armed populace in whatever sense in which the word armed can be used in that historical context, that is a great balance against the power grabs of true tyrants, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's something I've been thinking about lately because focusing on the kind of deformation of England in the 16th century. And basically the people, not that they didn't have, kind of the means to defend themselves, but that they had become so soft, especially in and around a lot of the wealthier parts of England there. So kind of, you could say their abundant wealth had softened them to an extent. They were kind of easy pawns for Henry, because you remove what you become accustomed to, those kind of nice things you become accustomed to. Like, well, I can't do without, fill in the blank, this or that. Anyway, long-winded way of saying, if these guys could stay at home, and a lot of times you hear them talking, you think, okay, they still retain a lot of love for their home country, even if they thought things were hellish there. They could do a lot of good for their home country, and so maybe that's our ticket, is to try to encourage these folks to think about what you're doing to your home country by leaving. Okay, besides the fact that surely there's somebody behind the scenes pulling the strings here that wants you to come here, be discontent because you're not going to get quite as much from Biden or whoever else is in office at the time as they were promising, or as whoever was telling you to come over was promising. So it's kind of like you're going to be hit both ways. So why not just try to support your home country that you love by being there and suffering through stuff. I know it's easier for us to say that here in the U.S. because we have a much higher standard of living than almost anybody else in the world. And compare it by comparison, but there's so much they could be doing for their country too, and maybe that's kind of a rhetorical change we could use to just change up things. That think about the damage not only it's doing to our country, but that it's also doing to other countries, and that imbalance of power, that's eventually going to come back to bite the whole world, not just us.
100% accurate on all counts. Yeah, there is a brain drain from all of those places, and we remember Joe Biden during the primaries, he was like, we want every one of them. We want all of them to come here, right? Economic or whatever the case may be, if they're this, that, and the other thing. But think about New York. They're putting into law somebody who has work visas, which was something that was very important that AOC said, if you have a work visa, you can vote. They're trying to make it so that in New York City, if you have a work visa, you can vote. So all those people who are protesting it, they're essentially just pushing them out. You can call it great replacement, whatever the case may be, but that's what they're trying to do in this point, because there is pushback to lockdowns, there's pushback to the economic policies, and for what we think is economic hardship, and this is just a fact, folks, get mad at me or not, is not an economic hardship for the people who are coming from worse. So when you're coming from a place like Guatemala or Venezuela, and you come to the United States, people are like, oh man, these things are so expensive and this is so tough. And these people are like, look, we have food in every store and we can get McDonald's 24/7 and our food and all our needs are met. These people are not as picky, for lack of a better term, on what they'll vote for. So I've talked enough. Steve, your thoughts?
No, it's cool that they're going after New York City, that they're saying all that. New York City. It's kind of like that whole thing of President Jackson's made his bed. Now you guys sleep in it. These guys want it, as not to use the people as political pawns, but they want it. All right, you take it. And if Chicago wants that for Texas, but Texas don't want it, all right, well, Texas, you better open your door. New York, you want that, but Florida doesn't like that, but New York wants Florida to do it. No. You get to choose that. You get to have that. Welcome to New York. California, same thing. Now there's this. Ron Paul has this out from, I think, years ago. Paul's immigration plan, physically secure the borders and coastlines. That's just obvious. Everyone talks about that. Enforce visa rules, no amnesty. He said that's about that at that time, 10 to 20 million were in the union illegally. That's a lot of people for breaking the laws, even though there's a joke about every time a law is written, there's 1,000 new criminals. So, I mean, that's us. I mean, we're the another joke of we can't go a day without breaking some law. There's so many laws that we don't know what we're breaking. No welfare for illegal aliens. That should be a no-brainer. In birthright citizenship. People don't know, as long as illegal immigrants know their children born here will be citizens, the incentive to enter U.S. illegally will remain strong. I know back in the day, people were like, they got to do that. Well, those delegates from back in the 1700s, 1800s, like came over. Maybe they were pregnant and gave birth over here. And guess what? They were still, say if they were from France, they were French citizens. They didn't just become Philadelphians because of that. And yes, I said Philadelphians. People back in the day called themselves Philadelphians, not Americans, or Carolinians. Past true immigration reform, that will never happen. As it's like, it makes no sense to fight terrorists abroad when our own front door is left unlocked. But it's all part of the same plan, the immigration and the terrorist idea. Because, hey, we were supposed to get hit a couple of months, a year after 9/11. We hadn't got hit. And they always say that we're going to get hit again. We're going to get hit again. Is Al Qaeda on vacation? Are they with Code Pink? Or Code Pink and Al Qaeda sitting there, watch? They were in charge of the F-35 being lost. They were probably programming the thing and trying to fly it around and go after Rick Barrett's backyard, trying to get his birds knocked out. But yeah, it's a political sham. You got these guys coming from Ghana. There was an interview from Fox. 2 guys from Ghana. How'd you get here from Ghana? Dominican Republic. Wait a minute, you took a boat over to take another boat over to come up. This live, it just makes zero sense on where these guys are coming from. They're like, how you letting these guys? Everybody's in. It's like Jonathan said, they're all like mid-20s, military age type deal. They don't look too happy. You saw the highlights from Italy. It's happening all over there. They're shipping.
They all have iPhones.
Yeah, they all got. They're videoing themselves on the boat, live streaming. They're live streaming on the. I'm having problems today trying to get live streaming going here before we got on. Computers. These guys are live streaming in good HD across the Mediterranean on a dinghy. How does that happen? Does their cell phone service work that much better over there? And the drones footage from the trains. I mean, these guys are hanging off the train. Woo! Like Randolph, whatever he's making that noise. It's really weird on that part. But, obviously they're trying to get, the votes down the road. Everyone's going to say that. There's just like the lockdowns. You still see the people going, it's about the election next year. Watch out for the election. It's even though the election is 14 months away. I would say that is mostly the distraction on the immigrants. I mean, yes, it's happy, but you can deal with that if you're in the right state. And if a state actually became a state and acted like a state, Texas say, you know what, you ain't coming in. And it would not only have the stuff in the river, but do whatever you want. You're the state, that's your home, that's your backyard. Do whatever you want. And you tell the people that live across the border, you want a gully, a pool, turret on your property, put a turret on your property. You want a tank or an F-35, find one, put one there. Protect your backyard, but no one's doing that. I mean, you got some guys that will do it on the sides. You're not going to hear the news, but we want a DC fix. We want DC to fix it, just like everything else. We want a centralized government to come down, hey, daddy, guard me harder, daddy, and tell me what to do instead of taking responsibility. And Governor Abbott could do that right now. It's like, you know what, Biden, go pound sand. I'm doing this. You send the troops down to stop me. Here's what we're doing. Or even better, hey, we're out. Oklahoma, you're the southern border now. Louisiana, you're the southwestern border, whatever you want to call that, or southern border in a sense. But Texas should just do that and just, forget you guys. We're going to take care of the people. We're going to bust them up to you guys in Chicago, Boston, New York, wherever. You have fun with that. It ain't our problem anymore. We're going to lock down big time and keep these guys out. We'll change our immigration laws and have it, and the thing's over with. But it's never going to happen. We're just going to keep doing this. Rinse, risk, repeat, wash, repeat, and towel off. And all right, well, we'll do this next year. We'll talk about it again. We'll talk about it again. It's going on for how many years, decades? it's a problem that's never going to fix because they don't want it to be fixed because chaos brings this type of stuff there and you get the votes out of it. It's kind of like the abortion thing. It's always a political football. If all these problems were quote unquote solved, what are you going to hear? What are you going to run on? What are the questions going to be on debate days? Who's your favorite football team? The Bears. It wouldn't be sexy anymore. You have to have this kind of stuff for people that care about politics.
Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy to see how all of these things just kind of converge on the same talking point, because whether it's immigration or guns or healthcare or whatever, cultural wars with, drag queen story hours, it all comes back to local autonomy, and how important that really is. So interesting on all bounce there. There's really no
to throw a Catholic idea in this. If you guys want a solution on that, you people upset about immigration, convert them.
Yeah,
they're Catholic. Half of them are coming, or quote unquote Catholics coming across. Then all right,
well, no, we already went through all the Hispanics. We're now on Asians and Africans at this point. So actually, I'll check that. Africa is one of the largest, most booming Catholic populations in the world. So I will check my own statement there, because they are up for conversion. So anyway, moving on. No segue to it. Going to cancel culture, and the fact that Russell Brand has apparently been canceled or been Me Too'd or whatever the case may be, and the internet is not very happy about it, and I don't really know why.
YouTube suspends Russell Brand's revenues from his channel. That's how it started. YouTube has suspended Russell Brand's ability to earn money on the platform after allegations of rape and sexual assault in a massive hit to his finances. The 48-year-old comedian and actor has been accused of rape, assault, and emotional abuse between 2006 and 2013, when he was at the height of his fame working for the BBC, Channel 4, and starring in Hollywood films. He denies the allegations, saying his relationships were all consensual. The Metropolitan Police said on Monday they had received an allegation of sexual assault in Soho, London, in 2003. The force added that as yet no investigation has been launched. And I highlighted that, Dr. Paul, because it's important. The police, not only has he not been convicted, not only has he not been charged, they have not even investigated an allegation from 2003 about him. Yet YouTube started out by canceling everything. And I read another article looking into how much he makes off his YouTube, $1 million a year.
Now, Russell Brand was not an American citizen, he's British, but it's his principle. It's contagious. It's like a virus. Once one people get away with it, sometimes they let the corporations do the dirty work and say, "Oh, this is private property." They pulled that on lockdown. The corporations are doing this all on their own, which we knew was different. There's a big mixture going on, and it's been going on especially since COVID. And that is the mixture of corporations and government. And this is another example of this. So the people who are anxious to
isn't that the actual definition of fascism?
Silence Brand are the people who fall more in the category of corporatism and fascism.
Yeah. But let's go to now where YouTube and canceling him on YouTube, taking $1 million out of his pocket a year. That's not. We don't make that much, do we, on YouTube? Not quite.
We're working on it.
Got to take a few zeros.
We're working on it.
But anyway, here's the Post Millennial, and here's the article that they put out. As you said earlier, Dr. Paul, UK Parliament sends letters to social media platforms demanding demonetization of Russell Brand.
I don't really care if it turns out that the rape charge or the sexual assault charges fall apart. You're 31 years old and you have sex allegedly over a 3-month period with a 16-year-old, we're done. I'm unsubscribing, all right? And I am sick of conservatives online trying to defend that as though she had a role in it. She was a minor. Just because you can't be prosecuted for it doesn't mean it's right. The conservative men I know are lovely. They're ethical. They're honorable. It's not to say they've never fallen down in their lives, but in no world would they be taking advantage of a 16-year-old minor. I have a daughter who's 4 years away from that. You come anywhere near her as a 31-year-old man, and we are going to have a serious problem. And it's not going to be over whether you get demonetized on YouTube.
Yes.
I really hope my friends on the conservative side of the aisle would remember, just because we're all over Me Too and it was an overreaction and it went too far and it got politicized, doesn't mean that we have to knee-jerk defend every scumbag who gets accused of bad behavior.
But not enough about Lauren Boebert. Lauren actually muted
bud.
Rick again. He's watching Beetlejuice right now. You're still muted. It's that button over there that has a little thingy that says a line through it. Here's what it sounds like.
You like that, Steve? Yeah, you're muted, bud. You're done until I say you're not done. Yeah, that's right. I realize how that actually works. So Steve's muted until I say otherwise. So, fact of the matter is, this is a UK issue. Apparently, this both happened. So I don't know why this matters to us. People on the on the YouTube areas are very upset about this. I don't know, Waz. People, this apparently is a popular thing right now to talk about in the cultural area. That doesn't seem to really bother me.
Man, the conservative movement should be done away with and replaced by actual conservatives. Because the conservative movement conserves nothing. Nothing. They have no principle. Russell Brand is no conservative. Bill Maher is no conservative. We are so used to taking losses that we literally will hang on to anybody. It's not even conservatism at the moment. Donald Trump is not a conservative. He's a 1980s, 1990s Democrat. The left has moved, the Democrats and the left, they moved so far left that anybody who's middle or center, who used to be a Democrat, is now considered a conservative. And this is how pathetic it's gotten. Did he do it? I don't know. Maybe. You know, I wouldn't doubt it. And they might have some stuff on him in case he steps out of line. And if he does step out of line, then here's this, you know, it's possible that they could, they could be persecuting him and him being, guilty at the same time. Anybody who came out of Hollywood, anybody who had this much success, to me, doesn't get there without any sort of compromise. And it's the same thing with the bishops, in my personal opinion. If you're a bishop in good standing at the moment, then you're some way, somehow compromised. And what boggles my mind about this whole situation is he got the, what's it called? He got the Andrew Tate treatment, where everything was all at once shut down for him. And I think people like him and Bill Maher, I think what they did was they finally realized that there's a untapped market of people who are just completely frustrated. These people who hate Donald Trump, like Bill Maher, are tapping to the same market that Donald Trump tapped into in 2016, where people in rural America who haven't voted in decades came out because they were sick and tired of the political establishment when he came out against them. Well, Bill Maher even admitted, he said, in the height of COVID, even after COVID was, kind of dwindling down, we didn't have as much hospitalizations of death, you couldn't get a show. People couldn't buy tickets in blue states because they were still afraid of it. So what did he do? He kind of changed his rhetoric a little bit. And then he says, I haven't changed, the left has changed. Well, you went to the middle, and now you got a new audience that you can't let go of. Joe Rogan did the same thing. Who was it? And now Russell Brand did the same thing. Found an audience that he could appeal to, would made him $1 million a year, and it got him in trouble. Because money rules everything. And he didn't think he was going to get in trouble because he think that his past of him being a leftist was going to leave him alone. And it didn't happen. So this is the problem with conservatives. Stop idolizing the Brands and the Jordan Petersons. And we got enough people that we can look up to that we can share across the traditional aspect. But as soon as somebody becomes famous and then they have any hint of traditional conservatism, we put them on a pedestal. We did the same thing with what's his name, the actor who played P.O., Shia LaBeouf. And then a week later, he's walking around the street dressed as a woman. I mean, give me a break. We got to stop. We literally need to uplift those who actually are conservative, who are traditional, who are pushing, to conserve something. And I, I hope he's innocent because I don't want anybody going through that. I hope that, and I hope he gets his life back, whatever it may be. But that just goes to show all of us, stop idolizing people who once leftists, who now are not.
Yeah, well said. And yeah, we do that. Anytime anybody, whispers sweet nothings that make any bit of sense to us, time and time again, Kanye or any of these other, whatever they, if they need to sell a record or something like that, all of a sudden they say one or two buzzwords, like anti-vax or something like that. And then there's 400 articles written about how they're secretly conservative or some nonsense like this. John, your thoughts?
Yeah, about the same thing that Fawaz said. Just reiterate that and maybe add that it's one of the dangers of being in the news business. So, have I guess a little bit of sympathy for folks who are going to end up sticking their face in the mud, but just a little bit, because to not know history is to more or less, repeat it. If you don't learn from those earlier mistakes, then you more or less only have yourself to blame. I mean, I know they're in the business, and so they got to say something. I don't know how many of them are actually saying anything of their own volition and not just something that's been given to them to say, but that's maybe another issue. But what could be the case too, if especially since this is more or less, I guess, a YouTube phenomenon, as far as I can tell, or kind of a podcast / YouTube, kind of independent off the mainstream media issue right now about brand, is we ought to think, what kind of controlled opposition could this be? Just stop for a brief second, think about the context of the world around us and say, you know what, if we've face planted on this sort of thing, and Fawaz gave several good examples. Well, I should say bad examples, looking at the character of these folks. We should have known better. Folks should have known better who were saying, oh, poor so-and-so. Is that maybe this is just setting us up for another big fall, kind of like with the, who was it that, Tate, Tate and some of these others. So, it's probably just a good reminder that things like this that have to do with human beings who are very sinful, but also who, in a certain sense, you hate to keep coming back to this because it seems almost too easy, but they don't have the faith. So, I mean, as far as a real grounding in what's right and what's wrong, they don't have it, or they've refused it in some manner, some way, shape, or form, and therefore, they're going to keep falling in embarrassing ways. Even more so than or at least potentially more so than someone who does have the faith, because they don't have these guideposts, of things to avoid, and seeing certain things as vices that only, folks of the true faith would see and recognize. So it's something we're going to have to recognize as well, that these folks are habitually going to get themselves in some sort of trouble. So we, just got to be careful in our defense and say, if we're going to bring it up, if anybody's listening that has a platform that wants to be more prudent, if you're going to bring it up, then you at least want to be really careful about distinguishing. This seems like an unfair way to treat a person. This seems unjust, because we don't have all the facts in clearly, and there's probably some, deeper reasons why they want Brand out of the picture right now because of certain things he happens to be saying about vaccines, whatever else, all the verboten, thou canst not say these things. I mean, he's getting into some of them now, even if I would say, significantly later than some other people that we could be listening to who might have greater basis in morality and the faith and all. But so it's a call for prudence, and waiting before we come close to canonizing somebody like that, and maybe just say, this particular thing's unjust, but I don't know about the person.
Yeah, innocent until proven guilty is an American trait. But once again, don't really know if it's an English one or, however that is going over there. But the fact that the internet is quick to cancel and demonetize and all this other kind of stuff, the idea of cancel culture is just foolish in every way, shape, and form. Right, Steve?
Well, this is still muted me here. Yeah.
What are you talking about? I don't know what you're saying, man.
How dare you?
Granted on my side. So, this is not the only time this was recently. Aston Kutcher was his friend Danny Matheson.
Danny Masterson, yeah.
This was last week. I mean, he just, I think, got 30 years. And Kutcher put out a video talking about, or a letter backing him up, and he just resigns from his charity over it. It's like, whoop, that was bad judgment. I mean, his friend got 30 years. So maybe it's just one of those things that, hey, there's smoke, there's fire. What else we can go after? And well, maybe people came out afterwards and say, hey, well, Russell did this to me. I don't know. I've been following Russell since he started taking off, but he had a meteoric rise. That's funny that Jonathan brought up the controlled opposition, because a buddy of mine talked about that. We talked about that a year ago, because I was going, how in the wild world of sports was Brand gaining millions of subscribers for saying things that, if I put up on the channel right now, would get kicked off today? Guys that I know of, Last American Vagabond, Corbett, all those guys got their channels nuked off YouTube for saying less than what he was saying. And Brand was not only not kicked off, but he was monetized. I'm going, this is incredible. I was right. How are you doing that? And there was also a video of him talking, yucking it up with what's his face, the philosopher Novel Harari. He's got a video, and people were literally commenting on a lot, probably once a week. What's up with you and Novel? Are you guys still friends? I mean, he seems to be in, but like the controlled opposition thing, he's calling things out, because there are people who are going, why is he's getting silence? This is censorship. Look at what is going on. But yet he was doing this before he got the 6.6 million subscribers. Why didn't they go after him at 1 million? Why didn't they go after 2, 3, 4, 5 million? Why did they wait till now? I don't know. I mean, you don't want to get kicked off for something that you allegedly did, and then, because that's just, you go Minority Report on people like that. But there's some reason he was. I mean, yes, he's very new ager. I don't think he ever had anything Catholic on his channel at all. I've watched a lot of it. I haven't watched in a couple months though. But I mean, he'd call out the big corporations for doing what they're doing, BlackRock, etc., Bill Gates, a lot of these guys. So I would scratch my head going, again, how are you monetized? I had the word vaccine in a sermon, nuked. That thing was off. He has it in almost all his things and goes to in-depth reports, and it's still monetized. I'm like, and I don't know how you paying him off, or like little something under. I don't know if this is also a big commercial for Rumble, because everyone's talking about, go to Rumble. He's on Rumble. He's on Rumble. Could this have been a thing with Rumble trying to say, because they were kind of, no big things were coming from them. There's no reason to go over there. Now this hits, everyone come over to Rumble. You can be safe over here, which they've censored people too as well. And their monetization is nowhere near like YouTube's right now. So
their monetization is garbage.
It's just weird on all levels on that. I mean, why did they come out now instead of years ago? Why are there actors doing the voiceovers for the people that allegedly was raped? Why are they going after their TikTok and all this? It's just really the UK government's going after, asking TikTok to knock them out and things, or even X, I guess. But yeah, it's you got on one hand this, you got the other hand this, and it's controlled opposition. And again, as we said before, the D word, distraction, because everyone's talking about this.
Yeah. It is the cultural talking point, which is very strange, because it's really just it's a very simple open and shut case, and it has nothing to do with anybody around here.
And you notice the quote unquote, the Catholic journalists or Catholic influencers on Twitter or X, they're all quick to jump on this story, call it a link for it. Hey, check out my link. Well, but Russell Brand just got demonetized for this. How many Catholics got demonetized the last couple of years? And these guys were like Jack and Matt Walsh. They were the two ones I've seen. I got kicked off, demonetized 3 times in the last couple of years. Never had anybody ever do an article on that. I'm going, why are you jumping on for Russell? I mean, I get politics is the religion, and it's politics first, religion second.
It's also clickbait headlines. They're chasing that algorithm. Whatever the algorithm is talking about Russell Brand right now. So you can put out great video. In fact, I don't know if you caught it a couple weeks ago. It was actually funny. A couple guys actually came out and were complaining about how the good videos they didn't get any traction. But if they did like a bleed it leads video, that's why they do all that content, because that's the only stuff they claim that gets circulation. So that's why they do it.
There's something to that. I mean, you look at, there's that one channel, Courageous Priest, I think it is, and they'll take a sermon from a priest friend of ours and they'll put it up, and they know they're going to get 100,000 views for it. But that same priest will do a sermon on religion that doesn't get posted because that's learning how to pray is not a bleed. If it bleeds, it leaves. Like, it's not sexy. We want that sexy stuff. And it don't matter if it's a priest, society, whatever. If you're talking about piety, you're not going to, if Fawaz comes up and does a channel on, he's incredible on virtue. If he does something on virtues, does a lesson on that, if Jonathan comes up with a scriptural class and talks about patristics, nobody's going to give two you-know-whats in Hades about that channel. But if both of them come together and do, hey, the Pope sucks and here's why, or the bishops stink and here's this, or here's the worst bishops in the city or the Eastern Seaboard or what, they will get 100,000 views in the first 24 hours.
Yeah, that's really what it is in that regard. That they're just playing to the algorithm. And so I get it. Believe me, as a guy who does a show every morning, they're playing to the algorithm. None of my stuff bleeds, so it doesn't lead on any of it. And that's fine. I'll continue to plug away, just like Steve will continue, and Fawaz will, with his Get to Know series. He did another great one last night. So, just the only thing you can do really is just kind of push against it by just, staying on your stuff. But I get it.
Doing a scream though. I mean, it's
really, it is. You see people with 2,000 views, 3,000 views in a day. And I'm like, I haven't gotten 3,000 views or 1,000 views in 6 months that I've been doing this. And it's, if you just change your title or your subject matter, they'll reward you, right? It's kind of the thing you sign in the dotted line, I'm not saying they sell their soul for it, folks. I'm just saying they change just a little bit and they get rewarded for it. So what are you gonna do on that? Yeah, it is. Hey, I think we're a little over, but I think we'll grab this one real quick because it's twofold. We have Poland saying that they're ending their arms to the Ukraine. They're not going to be giving them weapons anymore. And the little man himself, even though he's my height, Zelensky is in D.C. right now, getting praise from everybody. Even though he's in the midst of a major war for the future of Western civilization, he has time to come to the U.S. and hang out with senators and stuff like that. So, of course, the most appropriate thing is what happened in New York here on an electronic banner. You can take a look at that.
Tak z tonącym. My jesteśmy tym, który ratuje. Jak jest tonący, każdy, kto kiedykolwiek brał udział w ratowaniu tonącego, czy każdy, kto kiedykolwiek uczył się o tym, co dzieje się w tej sytuacji, wie o tym, że człowiek tonący jest niesłychanie niebezpieczny, ponieważ może pociągnąć w głębiny. Ma siłę niewyobrażalną na skutek obawy osobistej, wpływu adrenaliny i może po prostu utopić ratującego. Chwyta się wszystkiego, mówi się przecież w przysłowiu, tonący brzytwy się chwyta. Rzeczywiście tonący chwyta się wszystkiego, czego się da. Trochę to jest taka sytuacja, jak dzisiaj między Polską a Ukrainą. Czy trzeba działać tak, żeby się obronić przed uczynieniem nam szkody przez tonącego? Oczywiście, że musimy tak działać, żeby się obronić przed uczynieniem nam szkody przez tonącego, bo jak tonący doprowadzi do szkody i nas utopi, to nie dostanie pomocy. W związku z powyższym to my musimy pilnować tutaj swoich interesów. To jest przede wszystkim nasz obowiązek i będziemy to robili skutecznie.
On this counteroffensive that's been going on since the beginning of the spring, and General Miley saying, just using his word games, saying that they've breached the rings and all this.
They have actually liberated a considerable portion of Russian-occupied Ukraine. They've attacked through the first main defensive belt. This is a defense in depth that the Russians had many months to prepare.
But all it is just a little bit here and there going back and forth. There's been no considerable gains by Ukraine. The lines are almost the same as when the counteroffensive started. There's a little changes here and there, but the fact is there's not much has changed. Ukraine has not been able to take back Artyomsk or Bakhmut. They have not made any considerable advances. They've even blamed it on foliage overgrown, slowing it down. They've had several months, and the counteroffensive doesn't seem to have given much result. So it doesn't seem like coming into the winter, that's going to change.
Describe the state of the war in Ukraine right now.
That's an important question, and not enough people have good answers at this point. I think all of the lies that have been told for more than a year and a half about the Ukrainians are winning, the Ukrainian cause is just, the Russians are evil, the Russians are incompetent, all of that is collapsing. And it's collapsing because what's happening on the battlefield is horrific. The Ukrainians now, we think, have lost 400,000 men killed in battle. We were talking about 350,000 a few months ago. Within the last month of this supposed counteroffensive, which was to sweep the battlefield, they lost at least 40,000 killed. We don't even know how many people have been wounded, but we know that probably upwards of 40 to 50,000 soldiers are amputees. We know the hospitals are full. And we know that Ukrainian units at the platoon and company level, that's with anywhere from 50 to 150 to 200 men, are in piecemeal fashion surrendering to the Russians. Not because they don't want to fight, it's because they can't fight anymore. They have so many wounded, they can't evacuate them. And commanders are saying, well, if I can't evacuate my wounded, I'm going to surrender because otherwise the wounded will die. And so they call the Russians, and they all speak Russian, and tell them on the radio, look, I've got 50, 60 wounded here. I'm going to surrender because I don't want them to be killed. And the Russians from the very beginning have always treated the Ukrainian soldiers very fairly and very gently. And so they know they're not going to be abused or mistreated. They know they can actually be exchanged for Russian prisoners in the future. So they've surrendered. And I think we're going to see this army that we've been spending so heavily on increasingly melt away. And at the same time as we're talking, if you look at this long banana-shaped strip of territory in southern Ukraine that the Russians control, if you go to the northeastern corner of that, south of this city called Kharkiv, there are major offensive operations taking place there right now. And the Ukrainian forces are being swept away in front of the Russians. And again, all of this happens in a way that is just not reported in the West. And in the meantime, rather than admit that this is a terrible tragedy that should be ended on humanitarian grounds, if no other, that the killing should stop, as President Trump said, stop the killing, we're going to continue.
Yeah, so that is the point on what's going on with the Ukraine war. Now we're seeing Poland, who is pulling back from that, and it's really just a war of attrition at this point, and the fact that it never had popular support outside of people on Twitter. And every single day, more money is being sent there that we cannot either afford to give them or want to give them. And so I'll just open it up to the floor if anybody has anything they want to comment on that.
There's one thing I agree with President Trump is I think the war should end. There should be a peace. Split up the land however you want to, unless, of course, that you think Putin is ambitious enough to go after all of Eastern Europe, Poland, and such. But yeah, it's a W for Trump there. Even though just this past week he said the dumbest thing I've ever heard about abortion. How he wants to sit down and negotiate with both sides like he's making a real estate deal. But yeah, I agree with President Trump here. Think about that. What he said. I mean, stop and I know we've been desensitized to this, but stop to think for a second. 300,000 just this last month. If this is true, 40 to 50,000 human souls have perished because of this nonsense war. How many people are actually, how many of us are praying for those souls? Some of them are purgatory or praying for their families. So I think it's a good reminder to pray for the dead.
Yeah, Good point, Fawaz. I mean, that's very well spoken. Yeah, I don't know. I got nothing to say about this because I think this is absolutely ridiculous.
Everyone knows. Well, not everyone knows. Russia's asked them for a peace treaty a couple times, and Zelensky said no. The ultimatum is pretty much they want Russia out completely and keep everything that there was before. That ain't happening, and and Putin doesn't want to go in. The generals want them. This, according to McGregor, that the generals on the front want Putin just to go in and clean house because they know they can, and they don't want to lose any more men over fighting with one hand tied behind their backs. And Putin doesn't want to do that because then he doesn't want war with the UN or a war straight up with the United States either. So expect this to go on for a few more months, probably in the next year. They have hypersonic missiles in Russia. We don't. They're unstoppable. One of the things that McGregor was bringing up about the counter defensive on that was we could shoot them out, but the things about his hypersonic is you need to be precise on where it goes because they're so doggone fast that you have to have a knowledge of where it's going. And they do not, I guess they vary in trajectory, I guess. So knowing that, as the defensive said, and I've heard that multiple times, it is impossible to stop a hypersonic missile, which I doubt it sounds like. It probably sounds more like that coming in. But it's one of those, you hear it, you're gone. Russia has it, we do not. We have the F-35 that gets hacked, which will be like your smart car. If they can hack an F-35, your smart car or your electric car will be hacked, and maybe you'll be suicided somehow. But yeah, people that have been watching it, like Lancaster for over a year. He's been on the front lines videoing, different from the media that you are told to believe. You've known this, but people that fly the yellow and blue blindly and just call Putin names like I don't even get into it, but they don't have a clue what's going on. But you're supposed to keep sending your money out to Ukraine, and maybe the Rock and Oprah too to help out some. Maybe that goes to Ukraine too, since people down there in Hawaii hadn't seen that money either.
Nope. There's only one cause, and that is the Ukraine. Everything else can take a back seat because that is where they are funding or pushing their own money through. And that's really all that matters about that.
Don't be surprised if close to the election, close to at late summer of next year, where the Biden administration does end up brokering a peace deal, because that would be very beneficial.
To your point, that Biden speech with Zelensky kind of looking upset. I didn't have the video of it, but Brandon seemed to be, in a sense, trying to look like he's trying to get a backdoor out of that. He didn't seem as confident, or he didn't want to go out and say yes, and he did, but it looked like he was trying to find a way, like, hey, you're not going to be able to do this anymore. You need to figure this out and stop it now. And Zelensky doesn't want to play that game. Fawaz brought up that thing with Trump about the abortion thing. By the way, New Mexico is pretty much the lead. Going into the opening weekend of NFL, they're the league leaders in abortion right now, and they got billboards all over the place apparently. But it seems like Trump is trying to. I would say he's pandering to the General Electric. He could come out and say he's an alien life form that wants babies dead after 57 weeks and hates all these people. He will still win because his base loves him. Yep. He could say he took down the plane. He was in the planes in 9/11. It's like the joke back in the day. A buddy of mine said, Derek Jeter could come out in New York City and say he did it. And somebody go, Jeter. It's Jeter. Trump could do that, and they would still. He wins the GOP no matter what happens. So he may be pandering to a General Electric because of the whole poll thing, and he's trying to already get votes over that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll battle him because he's a politician. But everyone says he's an outsider. No, the dude's a politician.
Yep, he is. And speaking of Trump, that's a good segue. We'll go into the cry room. So, Fawaz, saint of the week and cry room for you.
A crowd room, I don't know if anybody has this yet, but there's going to be the German bishops, as always, who I guess reportedly have been blessing same-sex unions this past year or for a whole year. And for those people who are sitting around saying that this goes against the office of the agenda and Pope Francis, well, I can almost throw him in the choir room as well. Number one, he's meeting with Bill Clinton for no, I don't know why. Can't meet with Cardinal Zen, but you can meet with the Clinton Foundation. Number two, you know what? Can I just say something really quickly?
Of course.
For the past 10 years, and the criticisms of Pope Francis, I think, have been overstated. I think the trads can be very reactionary in some ways, and we end up biting, ourselves in the butt, shooting ourselves in the foot sometimes. But some of the criticisms are very legit, insofar as you got some folks who cherry pick quotes of Pope Francis the last 10 years to show how based he is. Yes, he's against abortion, but he put someone, he appoints someone at the Pontifical Academy of Life who's almost pro-choice. He's very anti-transgender in his words and his speech, but then he appoints someone like Calvin McElroy who's very friendly to the transgender movement. And it's almost as if this Peronian way of dealing with this pontificate, he'll say one thing and then his actions will be completely the other way. And for people who are sitting saying the German bishops are going to get it from Pope Francis, he knows about this. And if you tell me that the Pope does not know what the German bishops were doing or how they think, the last 10 years, what are they going to do? They're going to get a strongly worded letter from the Holy Father? I think that more needs to be done. He wants to punish the trads with traditionis custodes because we're dissenters. But at the same time, where's the excommunications from the German bishops? So I honestly, I put the German bishops and Pope Francis in the choir room here for that specific reason. He needs to do more when it comes to these leftist bishops and cardinals. And Saint is going to be Pope Francis. No, I'm just kidding. I don't have
locating.
Yeah, I don't have a saint of the week this week. Man, I'm just gonna my wife. She just does so much. She's a saint.
Fawaz is nominating himself as Saint of the Week.
I'm Hey King, like Dwight Schrute.
There you go. There you go. John, who you got for Saint of the Week in Cry Room?
Well, for the Cry Room, I'm going to offer all the trads who are already suggesting or hinting very strongly at a rebellion if / when unquote Bishop Strickland in Tyler were to perhaps be removed. And I mean, not that anybody cares about my little page or wall, but I noted that people are acting as if there'd be no cause for this other than that Bishop Strickland, His Excellency Bishop Strickland, is a good man and a good bishop. And well, I'll quote Fawaz here. Anybody that's still in power, they got some serious flaws. But I mean, seriously, if you have a memory that goes beyond last week, Strickland accused the Pope of heresy publicly. And really it's happened twice, but I mean, let's just say he has accused the Pope of heresy. We can just, we only have to talk about the number of times. And he was one of the, he gave the ultimate permission, but also he was deeply involved in a horrible scandal that has, I mean, from what I hear from some friends from Texas who are involved in the pro-life movement there, Rick, you probably know much better, but they say that the scandal of Veritatis Splendor there in his diocese has also hamstrung the pro-life movement, because one of the people who was involved in the scandal there was the then head of the Texas Right to Life movement, if I'm getting the names right, but head of some big pro-life organization there in Texas. And this happened not only under Bishop Strickland's permission, but he was actively involved in this whole project of raising several $1 million for a project that didn't even have any buildings by the time it finally came crumbling down because of the scandal. You want to know more, you just you could dig and find it pretty easily. But So to suggest that, if Strickland were to go down, there'd be no reason for it, no cause for it. Come on, if I think we have a little bit more stronger leg to stand on here, like for Waz, if he's going to talk about the clear failings here in the papal office by Pope Francis, whereas these other folks, if you're going to make a specific cause, you got to be fair to the other side at least. You got to say, well, hey, it would be going pretty tit for tat here if, after being called a heretic, accused of heresy several times, and seeing this huge financial scandal that's also really undermined the pro-life movement, has suffered because of Strickland's poor government, which he had, I know from a friend, priest friend, they are very close to the matter, that he had folks telling him, this is probably not a good idea, and yet he still did it. Now, I hope he survives, because it seems like he's a good bishop and a good man. And I saw that he just celebrated the traditional mass recently. Great. I just, we have to hold ourselves to at least, I'm not going to say a higher standard, at least the same standard, okay, as we're holding everybody else. Come on. Otherwise, we're pitiful, okay? So that'd be my cry room. And as for a Saint of the Week, I'm going to say, thanks to that clip that Steve showed, Megyn Kelly, thank you for at least, just because I want to choose someone in the public eye like that. And she seems like a pretty, sane person overall. And I like even her shows of emotion when she does show it. Like the one about, if he was actually going after an underage girl at his age. Come on, guy, go get married, go start a family. You want to really influence the culture? Show us how you can be a rock solid father and husband for, 10, 20 plus years. Then you've got some real cred if you want to say, I did not do this. So there you go. Sorry, let me get off that.
No, excellent. Excellent point. Steve.
Just to give a question to Jonathan on the Strickland thing. Did bishops like John Chrysostom say, I will not go to exile or anything like that? Did they fight back, or did they just go?
I think they kind of let the whip come down on them, and they suffered. They suffered for the flock. They went out because they didn't want to see their local church be torn apart by any sort of thing that would happen if they did fight it. So, and that was with a lot of times much more unjust expulsions. But
I wonder. I saw that he said he was not going to resign, and I started thinking, what did those doctors of the church, the saints, the church file, did they get you read about them in Butler's and Garanger, and they went to exile. 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 I never saw that they stood up and said, go pound sand and I'm staying here. I don't remember seeing any of that. Anyway, my cry room goes to go down to the land out under and make a right-hand turn. I guess it's a right-hand turn.
This week, we launched an initiative alongside companies and nonprofits to help improve research and understanding of how a person's online experiences are curated by automated processes. This will also be important in understanding more about mis- and disinformation online, a challenge that we must, as leaders, address. Sadly, I think it's easy to dismiss this problem as one in the margins. I can certainly understand the desire to leave it to someone else. As leaders, we're rightly concerned that even the most light touch approaches to disinformation could be misinterpreted as being hostile to the values of free speech that we value so highly.
Anyway, she goes, we have to save free speech by ending free speech, kind of like Bush, we have to end the free market to save the free market or something, whatever it was like that. My Saints of the Week are going to be the ULEZ, the ULEZ guys, the anti-ULZ guys out in London. Not every superhero wears capes. They are going around town in London and taking down. They've been doing this for weeks. They call them vigilantes. I love them. We talked about them before on here at Clown Planet many times. Just recently, they took down they chopped down traffic lights because what they're doing is they're pretty much spying on everyone in that area. It's like Paris just came out saying they're coming out with Paris being a 15-minute city. Actually, literally, they're going to do it pretty soon. And London has already been trying this in different ways and ending areas where you could drive. They just came out the other day so that you'll be able to have a car for 5 more years than what they allowed you to do the first time. They're not ending fossil fuel right now. They're going to do it later, but not now. But these guys, I love it. It's kind of like act locally, think locally. in down south, the joke is you see a drone, that's target practice. I think Rick has a class on that. Sign up for it. It might be free. But yeah, what you do when those guys are spying on you, will you figure out a way to take them down? And some people aren't going to like it because they're going to say it's vandalism. But when is the line? If you're going to spy on you all day long, and it's you gotta stop it somehow. It's not going to stop it. It's the Terminator thing. They will not stop till you're dead.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they have that is their end goal, is complete and total domination, and they'll go through as many people as possible to get there. So Saint of the Week is Jason Momoa, because apparently during the filming of Aquaman 2, he dressed up like Johnny Depp to terrorize Amber Heard. And I just think that's funny because nobody likes Amber Heard because she's a spoiled brat. So good on Jason Momoa. So it's childish behavior, but I'm going with it. My cry room is John Fetterman, fat slobbish man who actually got the rules of the Senate changed so he could wear basketball shorts and flip-flops and a button-down shirt so he could look like an absolute slob of a man. Thank you to the election. Thank you to democracy for that. Yeah, so that's pictures of Jason Momoa dressing up like Johnny Depp that apparently traumatized Amber Heard, but apparently she's one of the worst human beings in the world, so I'm okay with it. And then John Fetterman continuing to be a fat piece of, worthless existence out there. So, yeah, great things all around, folks. All right, that's it for this episode of News from the Pew. Like, subscribe to share the News from the Pew. I want to thank my panel for being here. I'm Rick Barrett, and we will talk to you next week. Until then, Viva Cristo Rey.
Viva!